Hey everybody, welcome back to the program. I'm very excited because here in the vinyl pad I have Danny Nogaris from the band Knowin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I remember you from high school. I remember all the things you drew. I remember who you were when nobody loved you.
I had a really fun field trip. I got to go down to Dangerbird.
Yeah.
And I got a bunch of records, and yours was one of them. And I get a lot of promo records, and like I listen to all of them. But when I flip the record over and then flip it over again, hear it for a second time, that means something to me.
Sure, yeah.
And yours did that.
Well, thank you. That's very awesome. Yeah, thank you.
So I just want to say congratulations.
Thanks, thank you. Yeah.
Making an album is not easy.
No, it is not.
And I wonder if you could kind of maybe go into a little bit about behind the scenes of this album and how it came to be, because you have people helping you, obviously, that make up Knowin.
Yeah.
But a lot of this is you.
Yeah, that is true. So Knowin's kind of had like a long journey to a first record. I did like the first Knowin show in 2015.
Yeah.
And at that time I was like, I just exited an old band that I was in, and I just wanted to do this like project where I didn't have to overthink anything, and I could just write songs and record them really lo-fi and just put them out. And so I put out like an EP on Bandcamp, and I played a couple shows, but it would be like I'd play like 3 shows and I'd stop for a little bit, and then I'd like write, and then I'd play 3 shows and I'd stop. And then over a couple years, a friend of mine named Aaron started working with Dangerbird Records, and he was like, they did a single for us.
Yeah.
And then that turned into an album. And David Yurkovich, who plays bass in Knowin, he's been in Knowin since like the first show. And then the other cast of characters would change, like a bunch of different people have played on those EPs, but the record was one set band. And David's still playing bass and engineering a lot on the record, but that's kind of how it got made. And then once Dangerbird gave us the opportunity to make the record, I was just completing my new studio that I was going to be working at, because that's what I do for a living. I record bands. So it was like a perfect timed moment where like, okay, we have this record deal, we can sit down and do a proper first Knowin record instead of these quick lo-fi EPs, and we can do it in this brand new studio I built to like kind of like test the room before I bring other clients in here and stuff, and really explore the space creatively. So it was like perfect, and that's just kind of how it happened.
Was this one of the first projects that went through your recording studio?
Yeah, so Criminal Hygiene, who's hiding back here, they did an EP with me at the studio, like right when I was finishing it up.
Yeah.
And then it's all a blur now. It's such a busy time, but like it feels like these two were definitely like the first bands to work there. This is the first full-length album that was made entirely there. Like I wrote a lot of it there. I demoed it there. And then I made the actual recordings there, and then I shipped it off to be mixed with someone else. But yeah, it was made completely in my studio.
So when you demo, are you a musician who can play all the parts?
Some of them. I'm not good at all of it.
Okay.
But it's like I write on a guitar, just strumming chords, like an acoustic guitar or something, and then ultimately I'll like throw like really bad MIDI drums down just because I like playing to like some form of rhythm other than a click. And then I write all the guitar leads. David has a couple on the record as well, but I write all the leads, and then so I'll kind of find out the hooky leads that I want to put in the song, which is a big part of this record, is like catchy guitar leads. And so like
good.
I'll write those, lay down the chords, do like a really bad bass line, and then sing it and come up with melody and words, and then take it to a band and like a better drummer. Like on this record, all the drums are done by Jeff Enzor. He's a really great songwriter in his own right. So like I could feel like really comfortable bringing a song to him, talking about what it needs to do, and he'll play drums in a way that really respects the song. It starts as like a sketch. The demo is just me trying to finish writing the song, and then I'd say the 2 things that are there always, or the 3 things, is like my chords don't really change that often, my vocal melodies don't change that often, and then my guitar leads. And then David goes wild with the bass, Jeff nails the drums, and that's how the record was made.
you had an engineer?
So I engineered, and then also David Yurkovich, who plays bass, did a lot of engineering, and then I had a mixing engineer.
That's
So John Goodmanson.
Thank you. Okay, that's what I was thinking of.
John Goodmanson, who's in Seattle, mixed the record, and it was just like we were getting to the end, and I was like, you know, when you're so involved, it's like your songs, you've engineered it, you've produced it.
Yeah.
It really gets to this point where it's like overwhelming, and I'm like, if I start mixing this thing, I'm gonna go nuts, and I'm gonna overthink every decision. I felt like it was a good move to like. And I respect his work so much. He's mixed so much good stuff. So it's like, let him kind of like, let's see, just like, I'm sure he'll make great choices. And it's important, I think, to have that like hands-off moment of like, let it have its own life now.
I'm just your reverie. I could never be anything else for you.
When I got the record back, there's a lot of mixing choices that I don't think I would have made. But at the same time, that's why you hire John, you know, or like any mixing engineer. It's because you listen to their work and you go like, man, he does cool stuff. Like, and I want my record to have some of his magic on it. Like, he would call me and we'd talk about like some decisions he was making, and he'd blow my mind because he'd say something like, oh, you know, like, I just heard this happening, so I made this decision and did that. And it's just like, whoa, I would have never gone down that path. Like, he's so much more, he has a lot more experience than I do. And it's also like a learning experience to hear what, like, because I know so intimately what's sonically happening on that record, having made it. So then to hear what he did, it's like, oh, cool. Like, I can take notes off of his decisions and get a lesson basically from this more experienced guy. He definitely has, I think it sounds like a record that John Goodmanson mixed in a lot of ways, and I think that's a big point of pride. Like, it makes me I feel very grateful to have that, because he's awesome.
What led to the writing of the music? Because what I really got from it, and I'm pretty sure it was intentional, but there was an air of nostalgia with it.
Stuck in the parking lot, car bar, karaoke.
Growing up when I did in the 90s, I'm automatically going to apply that to that, whether or not that was intentional. But
it was.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is going to sound totally weird, but like, you know, the music video for 1979 by Smashing Pumpkins?
Yeah, totally.
When I hear some of this music, like, I get that imagery of like a summer day, you're a kid, you don't have a lot going on, so you're just screwing around and having a great time. And it's almost like this memory, like me remembering that video with your music. Like, that's sort of the imagery that I got.
'Cause you're ruthless and you're hungry and you always get your prize.
It just struck a chord with me, really.
That's awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's all pretty accurate. Like, I like to say that this record looks up to and embraces like 90s era rock and indie rock is definitely, like, it does 100%. That's fully intentional. That's what I grew up listening to, and like that's the well I'm going to draw from is like what bands were cool to me when I was a kid, and then hit that again with like getting older and learning more about that era. Like, so like when I was young, I didn't know who Guided by Voices was or Teenage Fan Club really or anything, and I was into like big radio 90s bands. And then you get older, and now I love like Guided by Voices and Teenage Fan Club and Superchunk and all these things that become really important. So it's kind of like a melding of like a re-understanding of that era, because while I was listening to K-Rock down in Southern California and like whatever was huge, like Blink-182 and Green Day and Smashing Pumpkins, Weezer, huge for me. So like while I was listening to all that, which is all still really cool to me, there was this whole undercurrent of these indie rock bands that I didn't know about, and then you learn about them. And so I think all that goes into this, like the nostalgia of those bands I thought were like rock star gods, and then the bands that now I think are cooler to me because like they were like the undercurrent back then.
Are there any other like maybe like bands I wouldn't think that would have influenced you, or an artist that you take a lot of inspiration from?
I was a big like Bright Eyes fan my whole life. That was like a big one for me, like his writing.
I went through that phase.
Yeah, he's cool. I really like those Bright Eyes records, and I don't listen to him as much anymore, but if every now and then I'll go back and listen to him, and it's like it's still really cool writing. And I don't know if that comes through on Knowin, but it's definitely like I feel like he was like a big one for me.
I used to dream of swinging by your parents' house, and I would climb in through the window, and you would follow me back out.
I'm sure you get tired of answering this, but in terms of the Knowin name.
Oh, the name.
Knowin.
To be completely honest, like it might be because I thought it was a cool band name. Like that could be as deep as it goes. And like I'm sure there's something there where like I had just come out of a band that we tried hard for a while to make things work, and it didn't really get there. Didn't really get that spark to like lift off.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of like loser identity, like like listening to like being a like Weezer kind of vibe.
Well,
just having that like underdog kind of self imagery, probably feeds into it, but I really think ultimately it was like, that's a cool band name.
I feel alive and I feel useless. I'm trying to learn how to use it, how to lose control.
I wanted to talk a little bit about I call it a zine. I don't know what you call it.
Zine, yeah, we wanted it to be like a zine.
I love this.
Thank you so much.
I especially love the Mustang beating the Corvette.
Oh yeah,
right
it's
there.
awesome. Yeah, and we got a little Downey plate on the front of the Mustang.
Yeah, it's so good.
Thanks. Jeff Enzor, who played drums on the whole record, also did all the layout and design work on it.
I love your free patch offer.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Did that come from something?
It might have. I don't know if I should say where it came from.
That's all right. We can leave it at that.
No, it's cool. It's definitely a vibe. I wanted to have like a comic book. I mean, it's like the record, right? It's like Downey is that in my head. It's like youth because it's where I grew up, and it's like, and yeah, I don't know, it's got a lot of good aesthetic value to it, and then it also like reminds me of being a kid.
And then what is this building here? Is this lettering?
That's real. That's on the. That's
okay.
like so. That sign has been there my whole life. It's been there since the '60s, I would imagine. That's Wyman's Liquor on Firestone Boulevard in Downey, and like that sign is amazing to me. I think it's like the best lettering, the Y's and upside down lowercase h.
Oh, I just noticed that.
Yeah, it's great. It's bizarre. It's just beautiful, and it's like attached to this liquor store, and the liquor store's probably changed hands, a handful of times, and no one's taken it down. And I think it's like a perfect representation of like old Downey. And then that photo was shot by Alice Baxley. It's like an incredible music photographer and live music photographer, and I just always wanted to use it. And I like, if your record's called Downey, easy production value. There's already a beautiful sign, and then there's the McDonald's down at the bottom.
Yeah. That's great. And then tell me about, because I always really appreciate record labels, the label on the vinyl itself. I really love the layout of that. And that really invoked to me, I don't remember this style, but like for a hot minute in the 90s, it was all about like racing stripes and those coats.
100%.
And like,
yeah.
Like I'd like the cover, not Pinkerton, but the blue. To me that just invokes all of these things without saying anything, but it just evokes all that to me.
That's awesome. That's you hit the nail on the head. Like that. Yeah. I mean, in the first video for the single off the record, I'm wearing a racing stripe jacket. Cool. Like again, Jeff Enzor, who did the design and layout and played drums, just killed it on all these ideas. Like the stereo logo that's on the right side, and like just the numbering for side one is very like racing. It's like a little bit of like the 70s kind of is like mixed in there. There's like something left over from 70s rock reinterpreted by 90s, like which was what was happening in that stuff.
Well, yeah, there's that 20-year cycle.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. It's cool. Thank you. I'm glad you noticed it. It's like, it's definitely like, there's a lot of intention in all the design choices. Jeff's really good at what he does.
I didn't have the heart.
To take the
Yeah, because I'm like, I love that sign.
Yeah, the logo's cool, the knowin logo in the middle, but I will say the cool thing about tearing the plastic off is like, again, that the Alice Baxley photo is like really like on its own. It's just like beautiful. It's like, it works as just like an art photograph. So I didn't want to just like superimpose our logo over such a good image.
It's funny because the back of Abbey Road has that woman walking and she's blurred out.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is very much the Southern California equivalent.
That's cool.
Because like England's very green and lush, and it's like, here it's just like, this is so
parking
ubiquitous.
Lot. Yeah, strip mall parking lot, like no cloud in the sky though. So it's like, still paradise, but there's a lot of strip malls.
Yeah, exactly. A lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Your studio is called
Balboa Recording Studio.
And is that like a home studio, or
no,
where is that?
It's like a proper studio. It's close to my house in Glassell Park in LA. It was about 5 months of build out. Yeah, and that was like crews working and like friends working, and David Yurkovich, who plays bass, doing all the wiring. It was just intense. It was like 5 months of solid everyday working, and then you could open the doors and start recording. So
with your studio, is it pure digital, or do we have some analog components?
I mean, there's like a lot of analog outboard gear. I think it's I think it's a good melding of the worlds. We're not running any tape right now, which is a bummer. I'd like to in the future. There's a lot of like vintage tube gear and a lot of like vibey kind of like vintage equipment that right now ultimately does hit a computer for like this, like that's where it's going to record to. I think it's a good melding, and in the future I could see myself getting a tape machine and kind of trying to make a more hybrid situation. Like I'm talking to a friend right now who might start engineering there, who owns a 2-inch 16-track machine. It's a really cool machine.
Wow.
And we're going to see if that works coming into the studio, and that would be like a perfect melding. And then you kind of like, do basic tracking to tape, dump it over to Pro Tools or Logic or something, and then you can kind of meld the worlds but get that vibe of the tape.
I haven't really had that much experience in recording studios, but there's something about the feeling that I absolutely love.
It's really magic. Like it sounds corny, but there's bad days. It's just like any job. Like you're gonna get frustrated. It's gonna be It's gonna be like banging your head against the wall sometimes. But ultimately, especially in a time when like record budgets are down, people don't buy records as much. It's like such a challenging climate in music, but it really says that something like about all the people who are still dedicated to doing it, because it's like I can't imagine doing anything else. It's like the most magic room to be in the world.
If I was in a band and I wanted to reach out and record with you.
Yeah, my studio has an Instagram that's at Balboa Rec, and I read all those messages. And then we also just have balboarecordingstudio.com, that's where you can see pictures, all the gear, and talk to me. And then the band's Instagram is knowin.la. And that's a good way to get in touch with the band for any band-related stuff.
Well, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it, yeah.
Congrats again on the record.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Encourage everyone to go check it out if you haven't already. And thank you so much for watching. I'm your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side.